The NAACP is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, founded in February of 1909 to advocate for change in this country. Since then, the NAACP has evolved to address and advocate on issues related to human rights, health, educational, social, economic, and environmental justice, just to name a few. So if anybody would like to learn more about this, about the NAACP mission and vision, you can always visit the NAACP and also the NAACP Manchester branch online. Again, my name is Scott. I will be your moderator this evening. This workshop is divided into 4 parts. The introduction, which is what I am currently doing. 2, the speaker lecturer who will be speaking to us right after I'm done. 3, the Q&A, which is the question and answer section. And 4, the closing of the workshop. If you have any questions, please use the chat function at the bottom of your screen to ask your question, and they will be answered during the Q&A section. And we will do our best in a timely manner to answer as many questions as we can, because I know your time is precious and we'd like to end on time, which is 8 p.m. This workshop is, as the title says, self-care in an uncertain world. And our speaker will delve deeper into the subject matter. So without further ado, let's present our speaker for tonight's workshop. And our administrators will also put some links in the chat about our speaker and related links to the subject matter. Our speaker tonight is Brew. Just a little quick bio about Amma. Brew is a best-selling author, a keynote speaker, a life balance strategist, and certified wellness coach. She combines her bachelor's degree in psychology, master's degree in organizational leadership and human resources, ICF coach training, and personal experience. Amma delivers a personalized coaching experience to help her clients gain more control in their lives, achieve balance, and design the lives they were meant to live. I think we all need a little bit of that, especially right now. Fulfilled, confident, joyful, free from what has held them back. Following a rewarding career as a human resource manager, Amma went on to develop a childcare business to be fully involved in the daily care of her children. She became so committed to the care of her kids that she lost herself for years. She found her way back to a balanced and purposeful life and is now on a mission to help other struggling women find balance in their lives. Amma delves into the root cause of the imbalance in her clients' lives to educate, empower, and coach them to transform so they can too live a more balanced and purposeful lives. Without further ado, I present to you Amma Brew.
Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Scott. I would love to share my screen. Let's see if we can get that done. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, your screen is visible.
Okay, so everybody can see it, right? Awesome. Great. So as Scott said, my name is Amma. I live in Manchester. Been living in Manchester since 2013. I am in the coaching and mental health space. And I know Scott presented a whole beautiful picture, but it's not that perfect. And I usually like to share the parts about my story that's not perfect, so the people will know that I'm human and whatever I'm talking about is real and it can be achieved, okay? So I'm an immigrant, moved here with my husband to pursue our master's degree at Southern New Hampshire University and ended up starting a family here. We have 3 kids, 2 who are twin boys who are medically complex. And, you know, we came to pursue the American dream and it wasn't easy, you know, at different points because when you're an immigrant, you don't even know if you're going to stay in the country or you're going to leave. So I was living in a state of uncertainty, uncertainty about immigration, uncertainty about my kids' health, uncertainty about life in general. I had a dream, but I didn't know if it was ever going to materialize because it was also dependent on so many factors. And that led me into that state of burnout, stress, anxiety, overwhelm, emptiness, not feeling inspired, angry and triggered all the time because there was so much going on that I couldn't pinpoint. And so I did lose my zeal, lost my motivation, left the corporate world, as Scott said, started the daycare business, thinking that was going to make the stress go down. But I realized I was going through those same cycles over and over and over again. So that's when I started to research, what's going on? Why is it that I thought I stopped working and that was going to make me feel better, but why is it that I'm still feeling stressed out and burnt out and going through all these negative emotions and things? And that's when I realized that there was a problem. And so I did seek help, to try to understand what was going on. And I did have my aha moment and realized that I was overstretching myself. I was not taking care of myself. I was trying to be everything for everybody. I was caught up in a state of uncertainty about the future, of my family's future, right? In terms of our kids' health and even our immigration issues. And I was trying to be superwoman. So in the midst of everything, I was trying to take care of everybody else outside of me and everything else outside of me, instead of taking care of myself also. So I did get that help. I went on my own wellness journey. I decided I needed to take care of myself first so I can be strong to take care of other people and my kids and my family. And I did make some mindset shifts, and it did bring a lot of results. And, I started feeling more fulfilled, feeling more productive, feeling more inspired. I felt stronger to go after bigger goals, stronger to support my family, stronger to do things to impact the whole world. And that's what led me to start Empowered for Balance. And Empowered for Balance is not just a business, it's my mission. And we are on a mission to empower women to go from burnout to balance, to get that sense of life balance, And we're also on a mission to help women maximize their potentials and live purposeful lives. And then also to help women develop balanced self-esteem. But, last year with the pandemic going on, we also pivoted into, doing a lot of these kind of workshops for the population at large, because we realized that it wasn't just for women and that everybody needed it. So we started doing, corporate workshops and training to empower the population at large to start practicing self-care and to figure out how they can get their life in balance whilst they dealt with everything that was going on. And then also we started the community mental health awareness and self-care awareness through our podcast, our YouTube channels, and then our social media. So we've been doing a lot of that just to create that awareness and empower people to start focusing on self-care whilst we deal with everything that's going on here. So that is how I got to where I am today. And I believe that this is something that's achievable for everybody. We all have the power to live a life of self-care and take care of ourselves in the midst of everything that we have going on for us, even if it's related to the pandemic or not. But I think we all have at least one thing in our lives that we are not certain about. So let me go straight into it. Today, we're going to talk about what is uncertainty. The title of the workshop said, self-care in an uncertain world. So we want to even try to define what uncertainty is. And then we'll talk about how does uncertainty affect the world? And then we'll go into how uncertainty affects us as individuals, which is the micro effects. And then we'll talk about the effects of stress. And then we'll go on to talk about self-care in general, how we can deal with the uncertainties that we face as people, especially as BIPOC people. But before we start, I think we can unpack a little bit, because we are all coming from somewhere. You've had a long day, and I'm sure you have a lot going on in your head. So I want us to take a few minutes just to get us into the present moment, right? So we can let it all out and unpack everything we are showing up with, so we'll be ready and be in the moment to accept whatever we have here. So you can Take a few deep breaths if you want, breathing in on a count of 3, holding on to it for a count of 3, and breathing out on a count of 3. And we can definitely repeat that again. Breathing in on a count of 3, bringing attention to your breath, holding it for that count of 3, and then breathing out again on a count of 3. We're going to repeat it for the last time. So we breathe in, counting to 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we hold it for a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we breathe out on a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. And now you want to check in with your thoughts. What thoughts are showing up for you? What thoughts are popping up in your head right now as I speak to you? And as you think about those thoughts, you want to ask yourself, how are my thoughts affecting my feelings? What feelings are showing up for me right now? And it's okay to name the feelings. And as you name those feelings, you want to take it the next step. How are my thoughts and feelings affecting how I'm showing up right now? Am I showing up based on my values of who I want to be as a person? Or am I showing up based on what my feelings and thoughts are telling me? And as you check in with how you're showing up, you want to ask yourself, what is one thing I want to do differently as we continue this session? How do I want to show up in this meeting? Do I need to readjust where I am? Do I need to change my position? Do I need a glass of water? Do I need a quick stretch just to get me comfortable and ready? Anything you have to do that will get you ready for the session. And as we end this quick unpacking, we want to take a few more deep breaths if we want. And as we breathe in, we want to tell ourselves, I'm enough. So breathing and telling myself, I'm enough. And breathing out, telling myself, I'm enough. So breathing on a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Hold it for another count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Then you breathe out again on a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. You can repeat it another time if you want. And when you're ready, just put it in the chat, I'm ready, and then we can start, okay? We want to get the participation, so just put in the chat, I'm ready. Yes, I'm ready. Awesome. All right, so let's get right into it, right? We want to make good use of our time. Uncertainty, the word uncertainty. When you think about that word, what comes to mind? You can put it in the chat. What comes to mind when you hear the word uncertainty? What is uncertainty? And we want to make this as interactive as possible. So, when I ask some of these questions, just put whatever comes to your mind in the message, and then we can have Scott can read it out to us. Uncertainty. What I'm seeing here, okay, I can read it too. That's fine. I see the unknown. Somebody wrote unknown, the unknown. Anybody else? Anything else comes to mind when you hear the word uncertainty? Mystery. Yep, mystery. Anything? Anybody else? At least we want to see one or two more. I want to know you. I don't want to feel like I'm a crazy person talking all by myself. Okay. Anxiety. Yep. Anybody else? One more, at least one more. Uncertainty. Anybody? Fear. Yep. Fear. Yep. So the word uncertainty brings to mind so many things. And in so many workshops, I keep asking, and these are words that show up: suspicion, lack of certainty, chanciness, ambivalence, riskiness, vagueness, inexact, apprehension, doubtful, indeterminate, disquiet, skepticism. So uncertainty brings to mind so many different words. And a lot of the words that comes to mind are negative words. And, so I've done my search for what the meaning of uncertainty is, and so many things pop up on the internet, but here are some few definitions of uncertainty: the state of being unsure of something, or something that is uncertain, or that causes one to feel uncertain, or being unsettled, or in doubt, or dependent on chance, or ambiguity, which makes it difficult to predict the outcome of a situation, in addition to preparing to deal with, all the different outcomes that could happen. So these are a few definitions of the word uncertainty. And for me, I put this question mark here because when I think of uncertainty, I get a question mark in my head. It's when you're in that place where you don't know what the answers are. You don't know for sure what the fact is going to be, and everything is left to chance. We are not sure, right? Feeling unsure. So the year 2020 happened. And 2020 came with so many different things, from a pandemic, the world closing down, stay-at-home order. We were introduced to a nose mask or a face mask. Then we had all the Black Lives Matter riots. Like, so many things happened in 2020. So many things. And boom, all of a sudden we have a new reality. It's like the world was going on, everything was fine, life was going on. And then all of a sudden, boom, we are hit with a lot and we have a new reality. And now we live in a world of uncertainty. I go into these workshops, I do these workshops a lot, and usually I ask people, do you think we live in a world of uncertainty? And people are like, yes. Why? Because there's a lot of question marks about the future now. Nobody knows what the future holds. We can't even necessarily plan even ahead for the next 6 months. Even for simple things like weddings and events and personal things, it's hard to plan because you don't know what's going to happen, right? There's a lot of unpredictability. We are living in a new norm. There's a sense of fear. There's a lot of what ifs going through people's heads. There's a lot of insecurity. A lot of things are unsure. And all these things are making our world feel uncertain these days because we are not sure what could happen. And that's not to even say that the world used to be certain. Of course, there are many things that were not certain in our world before everything happened. But now we've got that extra added layer of the pandemic that's going on, which is affecting a lot of things. And it's like, even now, the little things that we even could predict, we just can't predict anymore. So we do live, it's for true, that we do live in a world of uncertainty. Do you agree with me? I want to see it. Put it in the chat. Do you agree that we live in a world of uncertainty? Anybody? Do you agree? You can put a yes, or you can even just, we have all the 100%. Yep. Anybody else? I want at least one or two people let me know that at least there are three people here who agree with me that we live in a world of, okay, good. So I got a lot of them. Awesome. So yes, we do live in a world of uncertainty. And the thing with uncertainty is that it does affect us in two different levels. There are the macro levels, which is the world at large, right? And when society is in a state of uncertainty, it affects us economically. And a lot of us will agree with me that there's been a lot of economic hardships these days. And it's hard for even, governments, entities, people, investors to even make sure predictions about even their investments or decisions around economies. Companies are downsizing because they can't even predict what's going to happen in the future. So everything that's going on in our world today is affecting us, our economy. There's also a lot of political and social impacts because the workforce gets affected. It's hard for even governments and leaders to even make decisions, right, around social policies and decisions that affect the people because, again, it's a world of uncertainty. They don't have the factors to even predict things. And so all this is affecting the macro level, which is the world and countries and cities and towns. Of course, we are all aware we have a health, a public health crisis going on. And now it's not only just physical because of coronavirus, but also mental, because there's a lot of mental effect, and we're going to get into that pretty shortly. But there's a lot of effects going on of what's going on. And now it's like when you make a phone call to even an outpatient, mental health clinic, they have a tall wait list, even in Manchester, because it's a crisis. So all these things are the effects, the macro effects of uncertainty in our world today. And that brings me to the question of how about you? How do you think that everything going on in this world is affecting you as a person? How do you think it's affecting you? Do you think it's even connected to you at all? Yes, of course it is, because you are the micro that makes up the macro. So as long as the world at large or your country at large, we live in the United States, or your city at large or your town or your state at large is affected, it does affect you because we are all the little bits and pieces that makes up the city. So yes, we are all affected. And that is why we are having this workshop, because we want to make sure that we are supporting people to take care of themselves while all this is going on in our world today. And so we're going to talk about the individual effect of prolonged uncertainty. Usually uncertainty brings up things like, like we said, stress, fear, anxiety. There's a lot of depression because a lot of people are ruminating over what they've lost, or over the life they had before everything happened. And then there's a lot of anxiety caused by worry and fear of the future because nobody knows what's going to happen. And there's a lot of stress. Many of us are under stress. Some of us don't even realize it, but we are all under stress because every time we are faced with, different news, different things going on, the fear of not even knowing if you're going to get if you're going to get hit or your family is going to get hit by the virus. So all these things are causing a sense of stress for us. But today, this presentation is going to focus on stress as one of the individual effects of prolonged uncertainty in our world today. And so I want to go into a little bit of science because I don't want people to tell me that she showed up and she just talked from her head and whatever she was talking about wasn't even fact. So I'm going to explain to you how stress affects us, okay? And I know that maybe many of us have been affected by the pandemic, but I'm sure we also had our own stresses even before the pandemic started. So the kind of stress we're talking about is an extra layer of stress in addition to the everyday stress that we always had, even before this pandemic happened. So I'm going to talk about the prefrontal cortex. It's the front part of the brain, and it's the part of the brain that's in charge of problem solving, goal setting, optimally executing chosen strategies, intentional living. So this is the part of the brain that helps us to plan our life, make decisions, set goals. So it's important for intentional living, okay? So that's the prefrontal cortex. And then we have the limbic system. The limbic system is the part of the brain that's in charge of stress response, and it processes all the triggers and the things that emotionally our brain tells us is coming to us. So it's kind of it's processes and triggers emotional reactions to environmental stimuli. So anytime we are hit by something that our brain picks up as a threat, it's the limbic system that processes it. And so, it does the stress response. And stress response is how our body protects us. And I always say it, we are created in a way that when we are in danger, our body is equipped to be able to try to get us out of danger. So I'm going to explain to you how the stress response happens, okay? So like, for example, you're hit by an environmental stimuli. So let's say, for example, you watch something on TV that's stressful or that's disturbing. Or maybe you're standing by the roadside and you see a car approaching you, which is going to hit you. Immediately, what happens is that the limbic system activates, right? Because that's the part of the brain that's in charge of stress response. And then brain stress response starts to, show up. Then our body starts to release certain hormones like adrenaline and glucocorticoids, particularly cortisol, which is all in charge of gingering our body and getting our body aware to run for our life. And then we go into survival mode, which is fight or flight mode. So at this point, the frontal cortex, or the front part of the brain, is not active. So you can't even think straight. This is not the time for thinking. This is the time for, let me run for my life because I'm in danger. All right. And whilst all this is going on, there's rapid acceleration of your heart rate. There's increased blood flow to the limbs. There's activation of the immune response. There's increased blood sugar. There's override of the brain's executive function. So it's like all these things are going on in the background. And this is all because your brain is telling your body that you're threatened, you're not safe, danger, 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 run for your life, run for your life. And this is all normal. And when this happens, there's automatic response, which I call the act now or think later, because you need to save your life at all costs. So the car is approaching, immediately all this is happening. And that is when, if you're lazy like me, who doesn't like to run, you don't even know where the energy comes from. You just run for your life. And then when it's all over, sometimes you're like, how did I get that energy to run? It's all because of the stress response. And this is very normal. There's nothing wrong with a stress response. It's in us to protect us from danger, okay? Where we have a problem is when we activate the stress response chronically. So it becomes a continuous thing. We go into a cycle, a stress cycle. And the more, it's like we're triggering this over and over again because we are under chronic stress and our brain is getting so many stimuli telling us that we are under danger. So we need to protect ourselves. So then you're living life in survival mode because you're just going and going and going. Your brain is just going through this over and over again. And what happens is that there's a brain overload, and there's an overload of the brain's capacity for more reflective and intentional responses. So when you're living under chronic stress, the front part of the brain doesn't work well because it's the limbic system that's being activated over and over again. And as all this is going on, all the other things that I talked about in the background are happening, and all these, things are happening to your body. And I'm sure many of you will agree with me that the past 2 years, I would say almost 2 years, has been chronically stressful. And you may not be facing, immediate stress, I'll say direct stress, but even things that we see on the TV, the news we are hearing, the numbers we're seeing, all the things that are showing up in our environment, in our towns, the new norm. Some of us had to homeschool our kids. We are not teachers. Some of us have to work from home and take care of kids at the same time. We are taking on certain roles that usually wouldn't be part of our everyday life. And all that is building stress in us. The news, friends, neighbors, not being allowed to go to places that you would usually go to, needing to adjust your lifestyle just so that you can protect yourself. All these things going on is causing chronic stress in us. And you may not agree with me now, but that is the truth. We are all chronically stressed. I'm not here to diagnose. I'm just saying this out of observation of what the science is saying, okay? And so many of us are going through this and we are living on survival mode. We've been on survival mode just to protect ourselves, just to take care of ourselves, just to prevent ourselves from catching this new thing that's going around, right? We're doing anything. I was telling my friend the other day, I feel like all of a sudden I'm OCD because anytime I touch anything, I need to sanitize my hand. And that alone is stress because there's that fear in me, you know, and under normal circumstances, I won't be like that. So I'm sanitizing my hands about, I would say almost 50 times a day. And now when I look at the back of my hand, I'm like, it's all chipping because there's a lot of alcohol, you know, but it's also because we are in survival mode. We want to protect ourselves, right? Let's talk about the long-term effects of chronic stress. Now we understand chronic stress and how it affects our brain and how it affects us and how we are living under, you know, survival mode. What happens is that, you know, many of us are not seeing how this is going to affect, could affect us in the long term. But if we don't do something in the long term, we'll start seeing an increased rate of diseases. And I'm talking about diseases like heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, and overexposure to stress-related hormones, like all the adrenaline, glucocorticoids, and all that. And if you're a woman, you realize that your hormones could even go out of balance because it's like you're all, you know, there's too much of stress hormones. Persistently elevated blood sugar, inflammatory chemicals. So we're talking about the potential of developing some of these health things. And these are all lifestyle diseases. And then also hypersensitivity to danger. So we're talking about getting in that place where now you realize that you're reacting even before you think. I have become like that. I was telling my family, and I like to show a lot of vulnerability. But when you've been under chronic stress, you realize that you don't even think before you react because you're just ticked out. It's like you're just irritable. You know, you have a hair trigger temper. And so little things that usually wouldn't even affect you start to affect you. And you keep asking yourself, why am I overreacting these days? It's probably because of this chronic stress that's going on that you haven't even noticed. There's also diminished executive function skills. I already explained to you that the front part of the brain is in charge of executive functioning, which is all the planning and, you know, goal setting and all that. You realize that that becomes tough. So there's a reduced ability to make clear decisions. You realize that now you try to think and you can't even think straight because you're like, I'm stressed, I'm tired, my brain is fried. Yes, because you're under chronic stress. You know, reduced ability to set the right goals. You realize that it becomes hard for you to even plan life, set goals, and try to execute them. You know, reduced ability to set priorities and make judgments. You realize that you're making a lot of mistakes these days because, again, chronic stress, there's a cycle going on, right? You realize that there's a struggle to keep track of problems in life. Now it's hard. Sometimes I even forget to pay bills. It's not because I don't want to pay, it's because there's so much going on. I can't even keep on top of things. I'm being vulnerable here because that's our reality. Maybe life is good for you, but that's the reality. And I'm seeing that a lot in my clients. Reduced ability to find solutions for dealing with life problems and follow a plan for moving ahead because you feel stuck. Many people are feeling stuck because it's like, you know, there are problems, there's things going on, but you can't even sit down and think straight and solve through things and create a plan of action because you're under chronic stress. There's a lot going on. There's a lot your brain is processing. And all these things are some of the consequences of living in a world of uncertainty under chronic stress. So today, I'm hoping that we can equip you with a few tools for dealing with some of these things, because we don't want to get you burnt out. We don't want you to burn out, because when you go through chronic stress over and over and over again, eventually you burn out. And burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. And I'm a burnout coach. I work a lot with women and people who are burnt out. And it's a place where you don't want to get to, because we are all wearing different hats. I always say it. Some of us are advocates for the BIPOC community. Some of us are family people, so we are parents. Some of us are working full-time jobs. Some of us are healthcare workers. Some of us, like, we are all involved in different things in different capacities. And the more we get burnt out, the less we feel motivated to do the things we even love. And usually when you get burnt out, you don't even have that motivation anymore. You don't have that zeal anymore. You know, the things that you used to do that brought you so much joy is like now when you see it, you don't even want to be involved in it anymore. It's because probably you're burnt out. And the question I keep asking people is, how have you been feeling lately? You know, how is life like? How are you feeling emotionally, mentally, physically? You know, do you feel like your battery is full? Oh, I'm sorry about that. Or do you feel empty and wiped out and done? So I want to pause and ask you, think about it. Ask yourself, how am I feeling lately? Check in with yourself. I like checking in often. Do I feel refreshed? Do I feel refueled? Do I feel replenished? Or do I feel like I'm done? I'm exhausted. I can't do this anymore. It's just too much for me. Mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, I'm wiped out. How are you feeling lately? That's a very important question. You know, you can't pour from an empty cup. I always say this. You can't give out what you don't have. Many of us, again, like I said, we have different responsibilities and we have different passions, and there are different things we're trying to do for our BIPOC communities. But we can give out as much as we can, and we can perform at our optimum level if we don't refuel ourselves. And we also need to secure our masks first. It's very important. It's amazing how when you sit in that plane, they tell you, when we need a mask, wear yours first before you try to help people. Because if not, you're going to pass out whilst you try to help other people. Are you wearing your mask? I know we all wear that mask out now, right? That's our new norm. But are you wearing your mask of safety, of self-care, of wellness? Or are you busy trying to take care of everybody, the kids, the community, the BIPOC community, the society, your work, taking care of everything else aside from yourself? Ask yourself, is my mask secure? Or am I going around putting on other people's masks while I leave mine off? Help is here. That's why I'm here. That's why I showed up here, because it's possible. We can do this. Some of us think it's far-fetched. It's not possible, but it's possible. And how can we do this? It's by prioritizing our self-care. When you hear the word self-care, what comes to your mind? You can put it in the chat if you want. What does self-care mean to you as a person? What does self-care mean to you as a person? You can put it in the chat. You know, many of us, when we hear the word self-care, sometimes we immediately think about, oh, I need to spend money on myself. I need to go on that long-term vacation. I need to go to a luxurious spa. You know, I need to, it's luxury. So we associate self-care with luxury. But today, I'm hoping that by the end of this presentation, I can show you a simple way we can start taking care of ourselves, even in little simple ways and small ways, so we can equip ourselves and fill up our cups and be strong enough to go out there and make the impact that we want to make, okay? So I'm going to talk about a few simple self-care strategies. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is control. You know, what are you focused on? You know, when the world gets into that state of limbo, or when the society is facing a crisis, sometimes it's hard to figure out where you should be focusing your control, because you wish you could do everything to save everybody else or save the world. But the place that you need to be focusing on, or what you need to be focusing on, is what you have control over. So the question you want to ask yourself is, what do I have control over in the midst of everything going on? Yes, we've acknowledged that there's so much going on that we don't have control over, right? That we can't predict. That has a lot of uncertainty. But think about it. What are at least two things that you genuinely have control over? 100%, not dependent on the government, not dependent on the leaders, not dependent on coronavirus, not dependent on somebody else, your neighbor, your friend. It's you have 100% control over. Think about it. And usually you find that a lot of those things are things that have to do with the year and the decisions that you make for yourself and the choices you make for yourself and the things within your little bubble as a person. So as you consume the news, as you go out there trying to save everybody, think about it. Am I focusing on what I have control over? Am I focusing on the things that I can do to create my own bubble for myself and probably my little family? Or am I out there focusing so much on things I genuinely don't have control over? That's the most important thing. In the midst of a world of uncertainty, or when there's a pandemic going on, think about it. What do I have control over? That is where you should be focusing your energy. And if we all could start focusing on the things that we have control over in the midst of this, we realize that the micro, right? Us, the individuals who make up the macro, will be strong. And then we can then come together, right? To save the macro. But if the micro is burnt out or the individuals are exhausted, and we are not focusing on the things like self-care and wellness and things that we are doing to refuel ourselves as people, what happens is that the micro gets exhausted. So it affects we don't even have enough strength to go out there to save the bigger macro. So start focusing on what you have control over as a person. The next thing I'm going to talk about is boundaries. We need to set clear boundaries. It's very important. One thing that's a big, what word would I use? Temptation is that when there's a lot going on in the world, we may end up consuming so much media and we don't realize how much whatever we are consuming is affecting us and it's causing us a lot of stress. Because everything you see out there, you may not even be the one going through it, but as you watch it, your brain processes it as stress. So as you see somebody go through a stressful situation, you can also be affected by it in your own way as you watch it or as you listen to that news. So you need to set clear boundaries around media consumption. Yes, we all want to know what's going on there, but how much of this media should you consume and how far is too far for you? I have a client who, when the lockdown happened, sat in front of the TV the whole time, watched it nonstop, didn't even want to move. And with time, she got burnt out. She wasn't busy doing anything, but just by consuming that media, boom, that was it. It got her. And she started having nightmares. She started having flashbacks. And it was like, whoa, So we have to be very careful what we consume, and we need to set clear boundaries around these things. Another thing is that we shouldn't be afraid to say no. Ask yourself, how far is too far for you, right? Don't be afraid to say no. There's nothing wrong with saying no. And having clear boundaries doesn't make you a bad person, because boundaries are important. Even countries have them, even towns have them. There are boundaries all over the place. Manchester has its boundaries. New Hampshire has its boundaries, right? The United States has its boundaries. North America has its boundaries. So boundaries are there to protect as a form of protection. So you need to set clear boundaries and not be afraid to say no, so that you can ask yourself, how far of responsibilities or how far of things can I have on my plate without feeling overstretched or without feeling like I'm suffocating or it's just too much for me or I'm burnt out. There's nothing wrong with having them, and learn to say no gracefully. And one thing, when I talk about boundaries, one thing I always say is that sometimes we are so quick to give an answer when we are being asked to do things, or when people are trying to put certain responsibilities on us, that we end up signing on for things that genuinely we don't have the bandwidth for. And what happens is that eventually we feel resentful because we've taken on more than we can really do, and we're not able to give out as much as we want to, and there's no blessing in it. So you don't need to even give an answer immediately if responsibilities are being put on your plate. You can even ask, let me check my schedule, and if it's possible, I will take this on. And I'm not saying that we need to neglect our primary responsibilities, because for primary responsibilities, they are our responsibilities. We can't get rid of them. We can't run away from them. But I'm talking about our secondary responsibilities, which are the extra things that we put on top of our plates, on top of those primary responsibilities. So anytime you have secondary responsibilities being put on your plate, don't be afraid to say no, and ask yourself, how far is too far? The next thing is we need to connect, meaningful connection for support and help. Don't isolate yourself. Lockdown doesn't mean needing to limit places that you would usually go. Doesn't mean that you need to isolate yourself. So ask yourself, who are the people in my inner circle who serve as my support system? Who are the people, who are at least one or two people that I can even call, who even a word from them helps me feel better. They encourage me, they support me. When I'm in a crisis, they are there to support me. We all need each other. So create those meaningful connections. Don't isolate yourself. Make sure that you are connecting by phone, by Zoom, anything that you have to do to get that sense of connection so you're not isolated. Go for it. Because if you isolate yourself, that's going to lead you into different places that you don't want to go to, because then now you're left alone with your thoughts and the things that are going on with you emotionally, sometimes when we are left with our thoughts, especially when we are dealing with a lot of uncertainty, which is causing fear and anxiety and things like that, it can lead to so many mental health issues. So don't isolate yourself. And if you feel like things are getting over, but I'm going to get to that when I talk about feelings, seek help, seek professional help. Don't stay by yourself, seek professional help. And that brings me to acknowledge your feelings. Your feelings are your feelings. Many of us have been brought up to think that there's something wrong with having feelings like fear, anxiety. No, there's nothing wrong with feelings. Feelings are there to let us know that there's something going on that's affecting us. And I always give that example that when you wake up in the morning and you have a headache, right? Immediately you do a quick scan of your body. Some of us will even take our temperature. Some of us will ask ourselves, am I sick? Are there other symptoms? You check in with yourself to make sure that it's not something. It's not the flu, or you're not getting sick, right? Or let's say you wake up in the morning and you have a bellyache. You ask yourself, did I eat something? Is this food poisoning? You really do make sure you check in with yourself when you get all those physical symptoms. But when feelings and emotions show up for us, we feel guilty and we try to push it away and bottle it up because we think that there's something wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with our emotions. So we need to bring curiosity to our emotions the same way you bring curiosity to that bellyache or that headache. Because again, emotions are there to let us know that there's something going on that's affecting us emotionally. And many of us are going through a lot of grief. We are grieving over what we've lost. Some of us have lost our jobs. Some of us have lost our income. Some of us have lost loved ones. Some of us have been sick. Some of us have lost what life used to be before, right? And so we are grieving without even realizing it. Some of us are living in that state of fear. Some of us are living in a state of insecurity. So all these things are there to let us know there's something that's triggering them. And it's true, there is something triggering them. So honor those feelings, right? It's okay to have them. And again, feelings are symptoms. And so when you bring curiosity to your feelings, it allows you that opportunity to respond based on your values as a person and not just what that feeling wants you to do. So the same way you would check in with your belly ache or with your headache, and then if you realize, oh, I need to take a Tylenol, you go ahead and take it, right? That same way, when you bring curiosity to your feelings, you're able to get to the bottom of where that feeling is coming from, and then you're able to deal with it. Sometimes it means seeking clarification. Sometimes it means talking to somebody. Sometimes it means going to a mental health professional. But let us acknowledge our feelings, because now there's a roller coaster of emotions going on and feelings going on, and we don't want to bottle them up, because the more we bottle them up, the more they show up, they're going to show up in the future, because they always show up again. Because then when you bottle them up and you don't deal with it, one day it just explodes and it becomes a whole big thing. But when we deal with them as we are dealing with this whole world of uncertainty, we're able to process those feelings in a healthy way, right? And that way we don't have that long-term consequences of a probable mental health issue or emotional health issue. So make sure you're acknowledging your feelings. All right. I know I've given a lot of examples of ways we need to be taking care of ourselves in this world of uncertainty. And you may be asking yourself, Alma, I get it. You said a lot, I get it. I know, stress, burnout, I get it. Self-care, I get it. But honestly, is this a reality? Or is this something I can really do? Yes, it's possible. And you might be asking yourself, where can I start, right? So I'm going to introduce you to the drains and fillers self-care. And this is the most important part of our presentation today. So please, and we're almost done. Give me a few more minutes and we are done. I left the best for the last. The drains and fillers self-care. You know, I've lived a busy life as a woman with special needs kids, an immigrant family, no extended family living with us. And when I went into the wellness space, I realized, I asked myself, what is the simplest way any busy person or any overwhelmed person can start practicing self-care without needing to spend money, without needing to take a lot of time for themselves a lot of block of time for themselves. And then my team and I came up with this drains and fillers self-care. Everything we engage in as people either drains us or fills us, okay? Drains are the things on our schedule that after we engage in them, we realize that something has left us, energy has left us. Sometimes you feel physically tired. Sometimes you feel emotionally tired. Sometimes you feel spiritually tired. Sometimes you feel mentally tired. Anything that you engage in that after you've done it, you feel so exhausted is a drain in your life, okay? And anything that you engage in that after you've done it, you feel refreshed, you feel replenished, you feel like, I feel so good. That thing is a filler. And many times as people, our schedules are full of, I'm sorry, I just moved things. Yes, that's it. Many times as people, our schedules are full of activities that are draining us. So if you will check your schedule right now, I can guarantee that majority or a high percentage of the things on your weekly schedule are things that are draining you. And so this drains and fillers self-care. The first step of it is to identify your fillers. Ask yourself, what is at least one simple thing that when I engage in, I feel replenished? And it's different for everybody. So usually I don't like to give examples of fillers, but I'm just going to give a few examples. A big example of it is mindfulness, like the breathing exercises that we did in the beginning, or maybe taking a walk, right? For somebody, taking a walk could be a filling activity. For somebody, running could be a filling activity. I have a friend and she runs every morning, 30 minutes. And after she's done running, she feels so good. She feels so replenished. And I'm like, if I run 30 minutes every morning, I can't even start my day. I'm going to feel so exhausted. So what is a filler for somebody might be a drain. So we are all different. Another thing is even just going for a drive, like just for new scenery, not necessarily to go anywhere, but leaving your space at home and just going out just to look around. That could be a filling activity for somebody. For other people, it could be journaling. For somebody, it could be taking a nap. That's my filler. I like sleeping. So taking a nap is a filler. So ask yourself, what is at least one or two activities that after I engage in them, I feel very replenished, or I feel like I have refueled myself, okay? And when you identify these fillers, you want to schedule them on your schedule 5 minutes at a time. And that's what makes it easy to start practicing this type of self-care, because a lot of times, many of us are getting these mind roadblocks around self-care because we think that, oh, I need to take a whole day off, or I need to take a whole week off in order to practice self-care and replenish myself. But with this one, we want to start with those baby steps and build on it. So let's say, for example, you have an extra 5 minutes in between all your appointments, and that 5 minutes, you never use it. You always still sit at your desk, keep working. How about you start taking that 5 minutes and you start using it for a filling activity? So it might be something like going downstairs, doing a few stretches, doing a few deep breathing exercises, coming back to your desk. 5 minutes. So let's say 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes maybe around midday, 5 minutes in the afternoon, maybe 5 minutes before you go to sleep. That's what 20 minutes of self-care during your day. So as you start doing these baby things, 5 minutes at a time, you realize that you're beginning to break that stress cycle. So you remember, we already talked about the stress cycle and your brain feeling like it's being stressed out all the time. So when you start breaking up your activities, even in 2 minutes increments, right? Or even 5 minutes increments, it's kind of like you're tricking your brain to feel like, oh, it got a break. So now it's like the brain doesn't go through that continuous stress cycle because you're giving it that opportunity to engage in something that allows it to feel like you're filling your body and you're not stressing your body out. So when you start doing this, you realize that your body starts to respond and you yourself will start loving it. And you realize that with time, it becomes a routine. You're building your self-care into your everyday life. You don't need to pause your life to go and have self-care. So self-care becomes part of your everyday life. So just as you wake up in the morning, you take a shower or you brush your teeth and you eat breakfast or you eat lunch, you realize that self-care becomes part of your everyday routine. So you wake up in the morning, you brush it, you do everything. Whilst you're brushing your teeth, you can think about, again, I don't know what your filler is, but you can add that little 5 minutes as part of your morning routine, or maybe lunchtime, right? How about you have a real lunch instead of eat at your desk, So these are the little things you want to start building into your day, right? And as you do that, you realize that self-care becomes part of your everyday. Yes, there's something going on out there, which is uncertain. The world is uncertain, but with time, you realize that you are living in a tunnel vision in the sense of, I understand everything is going on around there. I'm beginning to focus more on the things that I have control over to take care of myself, right? And I'm beginning to build these things like the filling activities into my everyday life so that I don't get burnt out whilst I try to take care of everybody else. Because like I said, you can't pour from an empty cup. We need you to be strong. You need to feel full in order to go out there and take care of your families, take care of your work, take care of the people you have to lead, advocate for the BIPOC community, right? We all want to be strong to do that, but we can't do these things unless we are full and we are replenished. So I want us to pack up. Let's wrap it all up. And I want us to all walk away with one action step to go with. I like things to be practical. We don't want theory, right? So I want you to put it in the chat if it's possible. What is at least one thing that you identify as your filling activity? One filler, put it in the chat. What is at least? Well, oh, okay. Somebody wrote getting enough sleep. Somebody said sound mind. Somebody said healthy lifestyle. Okay. So, if anybody else wants to put reading, somebody said reading. Okay. Anybody else? What is at least one thing you want to put? You want to choose meditation. Awesome. So now that we have identified our fillers, if you can pull up your schedule, let's start from tomorrow. What at least 2-minute spot, if possible, 5-minute spot, can you find on your schedule to put this thing there? Somebody said take a walk. Yep. Yep. So schedule it 5 minutes on your schedule, right? And remember, we are taking baby steps. We don't even want to overstart it. Start 5 minutes at a time and start working towards it. Even if it's 5 minutes is too much, start with 1 minute, just 1 minute. Start small, but have it, but think about the positives of why you need to do this thing, okay? And we said that the positive is that what? We want to make sure we as the micro can be strong so that we can what? Take care of the macro, which is the bigger world. All right. So thank you so much for having me. Again, my name is Brew from Empowered for Balance. And if you want to connect, we have all my links there. You can go to empoweredforbalance.com to learn more. And we have a free burnout self-guide that you can download to even check where you are at in relation to burnout, and see if you're nearing burnout. All right. Thank you so much for having me. And I'll turn it over to Scott. And if anybody has questions, right? Do we have a few more minutes for questions?
Yes, we do have questions. If anybody has questions, please send them right over to me, and I'll be able to ask the question for you. But Emma, that was wonderful. I already have my 5-minute plan for tomorrow. Tomorrow I have work. I have my 5-minute plan. That's for sure.
Awesome.
All right. Are there any questions right now?
Oh, somebody wants to see the previous slide. Okay. Which one? This one? Oh, this one. Is it this one? And let me stop sharing. Ooh, somebody wanted to see it, right? Oh, okay. Awesome. And I think, Scott, you can put in the links, right?
Yes, we are going to put in some links in here. So if there aren't any more questions, we can just start to close out. I know it's a little bit past 8. I am sorry for going a little bit over, but I'm glad you were able to stay with us and learn the nice, neat strategies not to burn yourself out. While you were speaking, Emma, what you described, I know fitness trainers have a thing where they say that, you can't keep doing the same exercise every time. You have to trick your body and do something different to throw it off so that it can continue to be fit. So what you said made a lot of sense to me. But are there any one more time, are there any questions? All right. So I have a question. What if people say that they don't even have 5 minutes because they are the pillar in their family, or they are the pillar at their job, or in the community that they live in? Because if they take a 5 minute, that 5 minute is going to be used thinking about the people who depends on them or are asking them stuff. What would you say to that?
So I think my line cut out a bit, but what I caught was that you're talking about people who cannot even take 5 minutes off.
Yes.
It's a mindset. You can take 5 minutes off. And that's the kind of mindset I used to live in when I was, a young mom, parenting 2 kids who had special needs and one who had a feeding tube and 2 kids who had surgery. So I'm not talking about just being a mom, but I'm talking about medically frail kids because they were born as preemies. And I used to think that even if I move away from them, then everything is gonna fall apart, right? So even taking a shower was a problem. It's like sleeping was a problem. But that's why I said this is what led me into this kind of work, because I thought that I needed to be there all the time in order to take care of things. But the truth is that that's not true. It's a mindset. It's anxiety talking to you. If you think that taking even that 1 minute or 5 minutes, somebody said, how about 1 minute an hour? Go for it. Start small. Start small. But the truth is, if you really, really mean to take care of yourself, you will find the time. We have little bits and pieces of time during our day. You know, some of us, it might be, even when you're doing the cleaning, you can have something playing that's still calming you down. You know, figure it out, build it into your life. And the thought around even taking 5 minutes, you know, being that needs a lot of mindset shifts, because that's not true. It's anxiety. A lot of times it's fear and anxiety that's fueling that kind of thought.
I see. Thank you for answering that question. Are there any more questions? All right, seeing as there is none. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you for your time. So we're going to close out the workshop. I would like to close out with the paraphrase saying, many hands make a load lighter. So with that said, the Manchester branch of the NAACP is always looking for members and volunteers to join in various committees, such as the Education Committee, the Health Committee, which is a committee that brought you this workshop tonight, the Environmental Committee, and many others. So please visit our page. The links are right there on the chat, so you can just click on that and it'll open up the page. And you can contact the chairs and start a conversation, and maybe that'll be the beginning of a nice, beautiful relationship. And perhaps you can even join in one of our public meetings that happens regularly, which you can find on the website. As for events, we have other events coming up, and as I mentioned before, this is the first of quarterly workshops. There'll be more to come. The next one will be related to the cold season, flu, cold, etc. Which would be brought to you sometime in either January or February. One such event that's coming up is our Kwanzaa celebration on the 26th of December. It starts the 26th of December to January 1st. So come celebrate the first day of Kwanzaa, Sunday, December 26th, 2021 at noon to 4 p.m. at the YWCA on 72 Concord Street in downtown Manchester. So we posted the links, so go ahead and click on the link, and if you have any more questions, feel free to ask. This is your last chance. If not, have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful rest of the holidays that's coming up.